Hey, Pretty Girl Club. So, I'm going to start this new series called the Pretty Girl Trauma Dump because I want this YouTube channel to be a safe space for all of us to talk about our experiences. And I want you guys to realize that you're not crazy for the things that you've gone through because of your beauty or because of your racial background or because of your ethnic and cultural background. So, one common pretty girl trauma is people trying to humble you. So, if you guys have seen some of the episodes that I've done here on this channel, you'll know that, I have gone through people trying to humble me. I've gone through people trying to tell me things like, oh, well, you're not that pretty, or you're not that light skinned, or you're not, the same things that you guys have experienced. I have experienced that as well. I've also experienced having some of my own cousins and family members stereotyping me based on my phenotype. So, because of the way that I look and because of the way that I speak, I've been told that I like talk white. I've been told that I'm not a real black person or I'm not black enough or that it's somehow bad for me to not be kind of this walking stereotype of what a quote unquote black girl should act like. So now I'm at the point to where I'm like, okay, that's fine. If you want to kick me out of blackness completely, then I don't care anymore. I don't have to try to act like a stereotype in order to prove my ethnicity to somebody. I shouldn't have to be a stereotype in order to prove that I'm a part of an ethnic background. And I've noticed that people will also do that with your non black sides. Like people have done that with my Latin American side, people will do that with your white side. So I'm no longer going to try to be whatever stereotype a particular ethnicity is in order to fit in, because I have also gone through something similar to what a lot of mixed people go through. It's where you feel the need to prove yourself. Another thing that I've noticed is that if you have any semblance of beauty, you don't even have to be like a pageant queen or anything like that. But I've noticed that if you grow up in an environment where you are the pretty mixed girl or you have any status when it comes to your beauty, for example, maybe a lot of people pedestalize your hair, maybe they pedestalize your features, maybe you have a beautiful body type. Let's say you naturally look like a model. I've noticed that sometimes people will try to go out of their way and fight tooth and nail to convince you that you're ugly. And that's because if you're pretty, you're not allowed to know that you're pretty. Actually, I've even heard people say, oh, it's so attractive when they look good and they don't know they look good. So what you're basically saying is, oh, I like when a pretty person actually thinks they're ugly and have lower self-esteem about their looks because that makes me feel better. So one thing I've noticed is that like your mother or maybe even sisters or family members or teachers or people who are around you, they will try to make all of these comments to try to convince you that you're not ugly. And I've noticed that some people will even go out of their way to specifically compliment other people in your presence. So they will try to compliment your friends, they'll compliment your sister, they will compliment a celebrity who looks like you, they will compliment someone with your exact same hair texture, exact same body type, but they won't compliment you. And they're hoping that you notice all of these other people receiving validation and you not receiving validation. They're hoping that you notice that so that your self-esteem can start to go down. And I honestly don't even think that people do this on a conscious level. I don't think that everyone who does this is like a bad or evil person, but I have definitely noticed this in my own life and I've had it happen to me so many times. And I feel like some people can be so aggressive with trying to call people ugly to the point where if you're not careful as a little girl, it can be easy to start believing what other people say. But the good thing about pretty privilege is that there's always another environment you can go in to receive that pretty privilege. So, for example, with me, I remember one time, so I went to an all white school, by the way. So there was this one girl, her name was Megan. She was a fat, ugly white girl, I'm just being honest. And she was so freaking jealous of me. Like, she was so rude to everyone, first of all. But she was very, insecure and stuff. But she was so, I don't think she's ugly, but like her personality was ugly. That's why I'm calling her ugly. She used to be a bully towards everyone, and her hair and stuff would always look messed up. Her skin, makeup, everything was always super messed up to the point where one time my family member came to pick me up from school and she was like, "Who's that little blonde girl over there? She's really ugly." And even I felt bad and was like, "Oh, no, she's not. Like, she's just having a bad day." So I was always nice to this girl. And I remember one time I came to school and I had my little hair done. You know, I had curled my hair and I had put on my little CoverGirl lip gloss and I had my little sweater on and I was just feeling cute that day. And I remember I was in the bathroom washing my hands and kind of looking in the mirror. You know how you kind of primp yourself in the mirror after you use the bathroom and stuff and you fix your makeup? So I was kind of fixing myself up. And this bitch literally turns to me and she's like, "It doesn't matter how long you look in the mirror, you're still ugly." So this is not something that just happens with like black women or unambiguous women. I believe that any woman can be jealous of another woman's beauty. And to be honest, I specifically felt like she was jealous in that moment because why did she wait until I was actually dressed up and I was like looking cute and kind of like, feeling myself in the mirror, enjoying looking at my little pin curls that I did? So I genuinely believe that some people, they get triggered by your confidence. And this actually reminds me of when I was a little girl. I was about, I think, 10 or 11 years old. And I was very dorky and nerdy when I was a kid because I grew up around all white people and stuff. By the way, no shade towards white people, but it's like that's just what it was. So I was very dorky and nerdy. I used to wear glasses. I was very tall and skinny at that age when I was about 10 years old. And I didn't really know how to dress or anything. And I never did my hair, obviously, because I was only 10 years old. I didn't know how to do my hair. So usually it was just in kind of like this curly bun or like this low ponytail, like a frizzy, messed up ponytail, not a cute one. But I specifically remember anytime I would do my hair, like anytime I would get a blowout or somebody would like press my hair. Remember when like pressing hair and using the hot comb and kind of doing that silk press? Remember when that was a thing? Anytime I would get a silk press or I would like have on a cute outfit, and especially if it was both, my own family members, like not immediate family members, more so like my distant cousins. I'm sorry, but these are my distant cousins who happen to live in the hood or whatever. They would always try to make comments that I think I'm all that or that I'm trying to get attention from guys. By the way, these distant cousins, they were fellow MLS people. So when I say cousins, some of them were older than me. So my family is so big to where some of my cousins are like in their 50s and 60s and stuff, and their kids are also my cousins. So they were maybe my third and fourth cousins, I don't know, but they were also MLS people, but they were extremely black identified. Like the women who they love dating unambiguous black guys, they were like that. So anyway, anytime when I was literally in elementary school, I didn't even know anything about like being with guys and any of that. I was not doing my hair or getting it done so I can be with a guy or so I can like flex on anybody because I didn't even understand what texturism was. I didn't know like what colorism was or that my phenotype was different than my other cousins. Because my other cousins, they were MLS, but they also had their hair textures. I noticed were like Doja Cat's, so like a 4C hair texture. And then some of my cousins would also dye their hair blonde or whatever. And then sometimes it would break off because if it's 4C and they put all the bleach and stuff in it, then it would start messing up. But I never knew anything about that. Never cared. But I specifically remember my older adult family members literally trying to humble me. So I'll never forget, there was this one time where I was at my cousin's house and I used to love hanging out over there, like in the hood with them. My parents, they didn't allow me to hang out in the quote unquote hood. So whenever I did get to go visit my cousins, I would be so excited because I'd be like, oh my gosh, there are other people of color. Like they have all of these fun events and stuff. So I remember one time in my cousin's neighborhood, they were having this roller skating night. So remember that movie Roll Bounce? It was literally going to be like that. So in that city, they were having this roller skating night, and after 11 p.m., the skating rink closed, like you no longer wear skates, and it became like where you can dance. So like a teen nightclub. And then you could play the arcade games and stuff, and it went all the way until like 3 a.m. or something super late. And my cousins, they were allowed to go to something like this. Like my parents would never in their lives allow me to go to a skating rink by myself or like with no adult supervision. And they especially wouldn't allow me to go in the quote unquote hood. But I remember my cousin, I was like, oh, can you ask Auntie? Because that's what I would call her as Auntie. I'd be like, can you ask Auntie if we can go to the skating rink this weekend? And I was in the same room as the as Auntie, and so she went and asked, and she was like, "Hey, Auntie, can me and Exoticals United, can we get dropped off at the skating rink on Saturday so that we can go to the teen night?" And then immediately, my aunt, she was like, Exoticals United wants to go to the skating rink. She thinks she's all that. Every time I see her, she's just swinging her hair. And she did not even answer the question about the skating rink. She instantly went into a rant about how I think I'm all that. By the way, I was literally about 10 years old, maybe 11 years old at the oldest. So why, when we asked to go socialize or do something where like there would be other teenagers there, why is it that suddenly I think I'm all that? I kind of feel like now that I'm older, I feel like she on a subconscious level might have thought that I was seeking attention or, trying to like get a guy or something like that. And don't get me wrong, I mean, when you were a young, mischievous preteen, sure, that could be a thing, but it's like, for me, I was just trying to go have fun. I wanted to have like an adventure and like a cool memory because I would never even be caught anywhere near any sort of club. And like I said, it wasn't even a real club. It was literally just you could dance on the skating rink floor and then you could play arcade games. And it lasts late at night. So a lot of parents would drop their kids off at this skating rink, so that they could go out and like do whatever they wanted. And, their kids are just at the skating rink or whatever. But I will never forget how I just went on, or how she just went on a rant like that. And I also remember there was one time where we were having a family cookout. So, yes, I went to the cookout, and it was with these same family members. And I just got my hair done for the cookout. So, because I already have the quote unquote phenotype, kind of the light skin, the kind of mixed look or whatever. So, because I already had that phenotype, except my hair was just never done when I was a kid, it seemed like whenever I did my hair, it was as if I elevated my status more or something in these people's eyes because I came to this cookout, I had just had my hair silk pressed, so it was really long, down my back or whatever. And then I was wearing this really cute sweatsuit outfit that I got from one of my older cousins. It was like a hand-me-down. So she had, remember the Juicy Couture sweatsuits? So it was a baby blue Juicy Couture sweatsuit, except it had a skirt at the bottom. By the way, it was like a rip-off version of Juicy Couture. It wasn't the real thing. But it had a skirt as the bottom, and then there was like this little cropped hoodie as the top part of it. So I was looking cute as fuck. Like I would probably wear that same outfit today, honestly. But I remember going to that event or whatever, that cookout, and first of all, one of my cousins, she immediately threw shade at my hair. So remember, these are all fellow MLS cousins, but they are monocultural, very black identified. So one of my cousins, she was like, "Oh, your hair is so black. Like it's just really jet black." Because my hair actually is. It's very jet black and very shiny, kind of like how an Asian person's hair would be or an Indian person. My hair is very shiny to the point where a lot of people think that I dye it black. You know how you can have black hair and dye it black on top of black if you wanted to have a quote unquote exotic shine. Anyway, so my hair does look even blacker when it's straighter, especially if it's really moisturized and stuff. So she was like, "Oh, your hair looks really black. Like, you may want to try getting some highlights." First of all, bitch. And by the way, I was about 13 when this happened. So it's like, first of all, why is it that I can't just live my life as a carefree 13-year-old? Why are people trying to suggest what beauty treatment I need or like what I need to do? And I also remember one of my other aunts, she was unambiguous. And I remember her saying like, "Oh, you're so pretty. You don't even need any makeup or whatever." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And she was like, "The only makeup that you might need is just a little bit of eyeshadow." And then I was like, "Oh, like I need eyeshadow?" And again, I was also a teenager when that happened. And she was like, "Yeah, so you can have more color like on your eyes," trying to imply that I lacked coloring, that I kind of lacked melanin. I didn't really have as much color as she did. So like I needed some eyeshadow, maybe some brown eyeshadow or something to kind of bring more color into my face. But why is it okay to traumatize a teenager if she is quote unquote pretty and she basically has confidence and self esteem and that she's growing into a beautiful young lady? Because I have noticed that there is this pattern where when you're a kid, when you're a baby or a toddler, you're cute. But as soon as you hit puberty and you start becoming desirable to men, that is when some of your own family members tend to view you as a threat because a lot of teenagers, think about it, a lot of teens are naturally very skinny. They have like nice bodies. You know, their face looks youthful and plump, and their hair hopefully looks healthy and kind of like a child's hair. It hasn't been dyed 25,000 times. Well, unless you did dye your hair a lot. But I know that my hair was healthier than it is now when I was a teenager because I had never done anything to it. It was always in a protective style, like 24/7. It was always in like a bun or a ponytail or like a side braid or two French braids or something. So it was very thick and full and shiny. And I've noticed that around puberty age is when adults in your life start to see what you could become, or they start to kind of see the potential in you. But when I was a teenager, around 13ish, that was when I discovered skirts, kind of like mini skirts and stuff. I mean, I couldn't wear the real mini skirts, but you know, whatever skirt my mom would allow me to wear. So I remember one time a family member was like, "Oh, don't try to put on your little cute outfit and start acting different." I was not acting different at all. I was literally just walking around in my little jean denim mini skirt, and it was one of those flared ones, so it wasn't the tight one on your hips. It literally like flared out, and it was kind of like a twirly version. But I definitely have a lot of traumas from, once I hit puberty age, from people trying to accuse me of being promiscuous or seeking attention or thinking I'm all that or thinking I'm better than others. I also have a story about when I first learned about what colorism was. So, this is when I was actually in elementary school. Our teacher was an unambiguous monoracial dark skinned black woman, and she was African American, like she wasn't from any other countries or anything. But I remember it was Black History Month, and so they had us looking at like Jet magazine and Essence and all of the like black magazines. Yes, that's how old I am. Magazines were actually a thing when I was in elementary school. So anyway, we had to like cut images out of the magazine and like make a collage. And I remember one of the students asking the teacher, like, how come she wasn't in a magazine? Like, she should be in a magazine. And she was like, oh, I would never be in a magazine. They would never let somebody my complexion be on the cover of a magazine. And then the class got silent. The kids were like, wait, why wouldn't they let someone like you be on the magazine? And she was like, oh, they only let light skinned people be on the covers of magazines. They only let light skinned people be seen as beautiful in the black community. They only allow people like Exoticals United. And she points me out in front of the entire class when we were like 10 years old. And I'm like, first of all, who does this? I mean, now that I'm older, that's what I'm thinking is like, who does this? Why would you single out one of the students and say, oh, basically anyone who looks like this student would be able to be on a magazine. Anyone who does not look like this student would not be able to be on a magazine. And by the way, this was in a class full of black students. Every single person in that classroom was black. So that was not fun. I also had the trauma of people obsessing over my hair. So I do feel like people talk about colorism a lot, but a lot of people overlook the nuance of texturism. Texturism, in my opinion, is just as strong, if not stronger than colorism. Because, like I said, when I went to an HBCU, there were women who looked like Chili. So they were technically of a darker skin tone. Women who looked like Chili, women who looked like Ryan Destiny, because they had that hair texture like mine, they were still called light skinned. So first of all, they were obviously conflating light skin with just being mixed. I don't know why they still do that in the black community. I just think there's a lot of ignorance about mixed race. So a lot of people just give people the nickname light skinned, which doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, there were girls in my college who they had that hair texture and people would obsess over their hair textures as well. Or they would say, oh, that mixed girl or that Spanish looking girl, even if she was dark skinned. And this is when I was at an HBCU. So I think that now people, they're so obsessed with skin tone now more than before to where they try to make up all these brand new categories and stuff. But back when I was coming up and I was in college and stuff, it wasn't as big of a deal. I would say that texturism was actually more of a big deal when I was at an HBCU because I remember one time, this is so messed up, but one time I was at a club with my friends and there was some unambiguous girl who was trying to go up into the DJ booth to like, party with the DJ or whatever. And she kept going up there when she wasn't supposed to, and she was kind of like bumping into the DJ and stuff when he was trying to like do the turntables and all that. And then finally he called out on the mic like, "Will you back up? Like get out of the DJ booth." And then he kept DJing and stuff. And then a few minutes later he was like, "This girl keeps on coming up in the DJ booth and she has no edges." Imagine being the girl at the club and the DJ calls you out at the club on the mic and says you have no edges. So the texturism that I've witnessed has actually been a lot more extreme than color, or at least when I was at my HBCU, it was. I don't really remember any guys. Well, actually, I only remember a couple of guys saying, "Oh, I only date light skinned girls," or whatever. But I would say, generally speaking, no. Like when I went to an HBCU, there were definitely girls that were dark skinned, that were very, chased after or whatever, or they were considered pretty and all this. And they did modeling and all the same exact things that I did. They also did it as well. So a lot of people overlook texturism though, because I remember from the time I was a child, people making a huge deal over my hair because my hair was always really long when I was a kid because it was only in like a ponytail or whatever, kind of a protective style. So my length retention was really good, I guess, as a child. So I had this extremely long black hair like going all the way down my back, not quite to my butt when I was a kid, but it was really long. I mean, my mom literally has mermaid hair. Her hair literally looks like Pocahontas or somebody that you would shave their head and create a wig out of their hair. That's how my mom's hair has always looked. So my mom's hair has always been like tailbone length minimum, and like she can grow it to like her hips. She's constantly cutting her hair because it just grows really fast and long and shiny or whatever. So I don't know if I just inherited that from my mom or if it's because of my hairstyles, but I do remember that a lot of people when I was a child, they would obsess, like the adults, particularly unambiguous black women, they would stop me in the hallway and they'd be like, "Oh, Exoticals United." Like I remember when I was literally a kid at an elementary school, just walking down the hallway, and I remember my mom put my hair in these twists. So all of the other girls, they were doing kind of these mini twists. I think that's what they're called. So not sister locks, but just twisting your hair. And I remember my one cousin who was also MLS. So she had like the 4C hair type and her hair was blonde, but she would wear her hair in these mini twists kind of going down her shoulders. Basically, it looked really nice when she wore it like that. And I begged to get the same hairstyle. And I remember when I got that hairstyle, first of all, my cousin began acting jealous of me because when I did the twist, apparently it looked better than how hers looked because my hair was like kind of long and thick, but I had never associated having long, thick, shiny hair with like, I am prettier than these people. Because like I said, I was literally in elementary school. But I remember when I got my hair done, the adults were the ones who would make comments on my hair and not on my cousin's hair who had like type 4 hair. I remember some of my cousins, if they had hair that was like breaking off or like very dry hair or whatever, sometimes adults, if they were black identified, they would say things like, "Oh, you need a perm," or, "Your hair's breaking off. Oh, your hair's dry," or whatever. But then with my hair, a lot of the adults around us would say like, "Oh my gosh, like Exoticals United, look at your hair. Wow, how did you do that? Like, how did your parents make your hair look so shiny and make it look like, like how it looked, basically, very curly and kind of the ideal standard of what you used to see in the black community, kind of those very loose curls." But all of that stuff caused trauma for me later on because it caused family members or friends to start disliking me because of my features, basically. So things like my skin tone, things like my hair texture, things like who my mom was and, how I was mixed and all this other crap. Other people started to project that I was stuck up or that I thought I was better. And by the way, this is not just black people who have done this to me. This has happened to me with white people. I feel like a lot of people, they think that the light skin stereotype, kind of that whole Hillary stereotype. By the way, when I went to an HBCU, I actually got made fun of and called Hillary as a nickname. They'd be like, "Oh, who? The tall girl over there? Oh yeah, Hillary? Yeah." Like they would literally call me Hillary as my nickname at an HBCU. But that same Hillary stereotype, I have experienced that stereotype with white people. I have had white people, white males, say that I'm snooty and say and like try to attribute stereotypes to me when I did not do anything snooty. Like you don't even know me. I'm just sitting here in the class. Like one time a teacher, he was a white guy. He was like, "Oh yeah, when I first met you at Exoticals United, anytime you would come in the room and you would kind of look around, or maybe you would talk to certain people and like you wouldn't talk to other people, I didn't know if you were like being snooty. I thought that you could have been snooty when I first met you." First of all, I'm not going to go into class in high school. In school, you get in trouble for talking to everyone. So why would I go to a high school class and spend the whole class talking to everyone? I would get in trouble. I would get sent to the principal's office. So whenever I went to class, by the way, this was in AP English, I would go into AP English and I would just talk to my friends and say hi and then just get ready for class. I was not being a snob by not going around the entire room speaking to everybody. And that's another thing that people would always try to say to me is like, "Why you don't speak to nobody?" Bitch, I'm an extrovert. I speak to a lot of people. If you want me to speak to you, you can speak to me. So now it's to the point where I just respond to the person. Like I'll be like, "You could have spoken to me." Or one time I even just looked at a lady and then just ignored her when she was like, "Why you don't speak to nobody?" I literally didn't respond and I just allowed her to look stupid and just sit in that moment and listen to the words that just came out of her mouth. But I have definitely been called stuck up by white people who like didn't know me. So it was the same jealousy. I've been called snobby by white men who did not know me. I've been called entitled before and spoiled. Same stereotypes. Conceited. I've been called those things by white people before as well. And I'm not saying that as a teenager that I couldn't have exhibited any of those qualities. No, I think I absolutely had moments as a teen where I was entitled or I was acting spoiled or whatever. But in my opinion, now that it's been, 15 years later, I actually don't think that I was any more snobby than the average girl that was in the class. I just think that they took those stereotypes of me based on whatever they saw in the media of women who looked like me. So the Hillarys, the Beyoncés, like I remember people, they used to make comments like, "Oh, well, she thinks she's Beyonce," because that's the only quote unquote black slash MLS person that they knew of that was somewhat in proximity to me. So they would stereotype me like how they view Beyonce, like I'm just this, sexually hyped up, like, "Oh my God, I'm such a snob. I'm a diva. I'm a diva," that sort of vibe. So I've dealt with stereotypes and traumas on both sides. I have had girls in high school, white girls, they will try to purposely leave me out of certain things. Like I remember when the time came to try out for the choir, like they knew that, okay, I actually think I'm a bad singer. But in comparison to these girls who can't even stay on key with Taylor Swift, they were viewing me as a freaking Whitney Houston. So I remember when it came time for like the choir tryouts. By the way, I went to a private school, so choir, like the chamber choir, and kind of like the glee club, that sort of thing, that was pedestalized because I'm from a different culture. I'm from a different background. My school didn't have a football team. The people in my school, they played lacrosse. People would like go hunting and, so it was one of those types of schools. Think Gossip Girl. It was that vibe. So I remember when we were in varsity choir, it was right before they were going to do the auditions for the advanced choir, which was the chamber choir. And I remember the director, he was like, "Oh, you guys can break off into groups of 4 and like one of you can lead the group and then the other people can like follow that person and they'll teach you the notes to the songs." And then I remember one of the girls, she was white, she was like, "Ugh, he's probably going to pick Exoticals United to be the leader." And then she like rolled her eyes. I had never even tried out for a solo. I had never even said, "Oh, I'm such a good singer." I've never in my life done anything to try to like promote myself above anyone else. But that girl who made that comment was clearly jealous because, no offense, but her voice was like extremely bad, like the nasally, like not like a black person singing bad. No, hers was like white girl singing bad. I don't care how I sound right now because you know the difference. You know the difference between a black person who says, "I can't sing." Usually a black person who quote unquote can't sing, they can at least somewhat stay on key for the most part because culturally speaking, in the African American community, there's a lot of church going. There's a lot of, you're raised in church, you're raised listening to a lot of really good singers, a lot of R&B singers and gospel singers and stuff. And so if you grow up mimicking those singers, you're mimicking their runs, you're mimicking their notes and stuff. Your version of can't sing and then somebody else's version of can't sing, it's like, no, they literally like, they don't even understand what note they're singing. Like they don't even know how to sing on key. I didn't even know that was possible. I knew that you could like be off a couple of times and then like after maybe the third or fourth time, then you can be on key. Or there are some people who they can sing along with a song that's already playing and you'll be on key. But no, when I went to that white school, that's the first time that I've ever been around someone where you could literally try to sing the note 10 times or play the song and they will still be like, oh. Anyway, so I have dealt with the trauma of girls, both black girls and white girls, trying to leave me out of certain things or getting upset because they feel like I'm automatically going to be the leader or feeling like I stand out to the point where I'm going to have the privilege of being able to kind of social climb, like, oh, well, the director, he's going to make her the leader, or, oh, I already know she's going to make the cheer squad, that sort of thing. I remember when I made it into the choir, one of my friends, like my best friend at the time, she was white. She literally stopped talking to me. Like she literally ignored me and like ghosted me as a friend. And then I asked my other friend, I was like, hey, how come Elizabeth isn't talking to me? And then she was like, oh, she's mad because you made the choir and she didn't. And I was like, that's not my fault. And I remember, so the one girl who called me ugly, the girl who was like, oh, it doesn't matter how much you look in the mirror, you're still ugly. So that girl also tried out for the choir. She was a music theater singer, but she couldn't stay on key. She was one of those people who literally, no matter how many times, you could play the song and just say, okay, just mimic what's on the song. She will literally start singing something way off. And so she didn't make the choir. Her and then my friend who ghosted me, both of them tried to convince me to drop out of the choir so that I could like free up a spot because I got into it a year early. So it was only supposed to be for seniors and you could only skip if you were like good or whatever. I mean, if you were good in comparison to the people at the high school. But I remember the girls who were seniors, they thought that like they should have more of a chance of getting in because, you know, they had been in the other choirs ever since 7th grade. So my high school, it was like there was a junior high and then there was a high school and they were both under the same school because it was a private school. So they had been working for like, 5 years doing all of these choirs and then auditioning to get into the higher one, then next year auditioning to get into another one, then the next year auditioning and all that. And they were thinking that like, since they were seniors, they would be able to get in because they spent all that time in all of the other choirs, but then they still didn't get in because it's like, yeah, if the teacher who was here last year just allowed you to be in because, maybe you were the weakest person in the whole entire choir for those 5 years, why would you suddenly think that you could be in the advanced choir? Like, of course you're not going to be in it. But anyway, I remember people being threatened by my success because a lot of people, they assume that if you're pretty, you can't possibly have any other talents. You can't be pretty and you can sing. You can't be pretty and you're good at acting. You can't be pretty and you can dance and do cheerleading. That's impossible. That's not fair for you to be able to be pretty and you're professional and you're well-spoken and you're educated and you have good social skills or you attract men who are providers and all that. That's not fair. So I have had the trauma of people getting upset because they feel like, well, you're already pretty or you already have pretty privilege. Why do you think it's okay for you to have other privileges? And by the way, when it comes to the girls in high school, I'm not just assuming that, oh, they thought I was pretty or whatever, so that's why they're acting like this. No, in high school, I was literally doing modeling. I'm not trying to say it like, oh my God, I'm just so pretty, but I am saying it like, they were not telling the truth when they said I was ugly. I mean, at the very least, I would be regular or a regular looking girl who is tall and slim and has healthy hair to do modeling or whatever. But I had never viewed those things as worthy of others being jealous of because I wasn't very knowledgeable. I mean, I was somewhat knowledgeable about jealousy and all that, but I had believed the lie that if a person is an MLS person or if a person is a white person, it's impossible for them to be jealous. So even I had believed that lie when I was that young. But that is not the case. A white person can be jealous, a black person can be jealous, a mixed person can be jealous. Anybody can be jealous of anyone for any given reason. So I've definitely had some of those traumas. Anyway, can any of you guys relate to any of these things I'm talking about? Let me know in the comments section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.